Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Cady. So today's video is going to be my October reading wrap-up. You know the drill, this is going to be all of the books that I read in October. So let's just get into it. So I didn't complete my October TBR, but I feel like I made a good dent in it and I did pretty well. But I didn't finish everything I wanted to. But you win some, you lose some, you know? So the first book that I finished in October is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. So this came up on my Libby app and I had been on a wait list for it and it came up in October, so I read it in October. And basically this book is a contemporary romance, an office romance. It's kind of like from hate to love, although I feel like it's not really enemies to lovers, but it's like a hate to love thing. Anyway, the main character Lucy works in the same office as Josh, and they have this like rivalry going and they're trying to get the same position at work, or the same promotion at work. And she's convinced that they hate each other, and her password's like, I hate Joshua, and all this stuff. And then it kind of blooms into a romance. So there's so much hype around this book. Everyone says they love it, and I was just curious. So I wanted to know for myself. Contemporary romance is not my genre. I am very much a fantasy, sci-fi, dark academia type reader. But because of all the hype of this, I kind of wanted to see what it was about, and I did listen to it. And that being said, that it's not my favorite genre, and I don't really usually gravitate towards romance, especially contemporary romance. I really liked this book. I was really shocked about how much I enjoyed it. And because it wasn't my usual one, I was pretty hesitant to read it, but like I said, I really enjoyed it. I like that the progression of the relationship was slower, like I guess more slow burn. It did have the same kind of rom-com feel of a misunderstanding that inevitably happens to move the plot forward or to cause division and drama. And like most of the plot I was able to guess, but I did like it, and there was quite a bit that I found pretty funny, pretty humorous. I liked Josh's character a lot and his banter. I thought that was pretty funny. And overall, I get why people like this book so much. And I would say that if you do usually read contemporary romance or just contemporaries or romances in general, I think you would really like this book. So if you've been hesitant about picking it up, I would say if you enjoy any of those types of books that you would definitely really like this. And I gave that book 4 out of 5 stars, and that was the first book that I read in October. Also apologize for the light. I was pre-filming and the sun has disappeared, so we're all in artificial lighting right now. The next book that I read in October was A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. I have never read the All Souls trilogy, and one of my good friends, Christy, recommended A Discovery of Witches to me, and she really enjoyed the book and thought it was really good. And so I've been really curious about it and really wanting to pick it up for a while, but just kind of never did. I was on a wait list again with Libby, and it came up way faster than I thought it was going to, and so I was able to start it and finish it in October. And basically what this story is about is it's a witch who has denied her powers and kind of not delved into that part of her life at all because of her parents were witches and they died. And so she's just kind of trying to cut that part out of her life, ignore it, make sure, like kind of ignore it, see if it goes away type of a thing. She's a historian, and so she's at this university teaching and doing research, and she is doing research and stumbles upon this manuscript that ends up being kind of magical, and nobody's been able to find it. And so she finds it, she reads it, and then from there a lot of things start happening and unraveling, and demons and vampires and all of these creatures start coming closer to her and paying more attention, and then the events kind of go from there. I really liked the world building, and I really liked the way it explains the magic and how she's kind of learning magic as she goes. There's a lot of interesting characters like her aunts, and I really liked Matthew's character and Matthew's dynamic with Diana, the main character. And Aunt Sarah was really funny. She was my favorite. The magic and the underlying political stuff, like between the different creatures, was really interesting to see, and to see how it kind of played out with like the demons and the witches and the vampires. It was a slower paced book at times, and it kind of, there were times where I felt like, okay, let's just get to the next thing. But I felt it was a slower paced book, and at times peppered with more moments of intensity. And in the beginning, it's more interesting because, you know, Matthew comes in and you're trying to figure out the dynamic between the two. And then once they kind of develop this friendship, then you're like, where is this going? I have a feeling it'll get more intense, like the longer the series goes on and in the later books, but I did enjoy it overall. I thought it was good. I gave it 3.5 stars. There were points of this though where I was like, was Twilight based on some of this? Because Matthew's a vampire, right? And Diana's a witch, so that part's not accurate. But some of the stuff he does where he's like very protective and very possessive and like, you can't do this because you're fragile and stuff like that. There were a lot of parts of it that kind of reminded me of Twilight, but like, this is like a more adult Twilight. And obviously overall this was better, but I just wondered if this book inspired any of Twilight. Maybe some of you know the answer to that question, but I just could see similarities, and maybe that's because of just vampires as creatures and the similarities you can draw from that, or the way you can interpret it. There was just something that I noticed. Not good, not bad, just something I noticed. But overall, I did really enjoy it, and I do want to continue the series. The next book that I finished in October is What We Devour by Lindsay Miller. So I plan on doing a book review for this in a separate video, but there's kind of something about this book that I don't really know how to pinpoint. So this was hard for me to get invested in. And I didn't really feel fear or urgency at the like impending doom that was supposed to be coming and the like looming danger. I didn't really feel that. And I feel like you should feel that with the situation. So kind of what this book is about is the main character is a dual rot, which there's like vile rot and noble rot, and you usually have one or the other, and it's certain powers you can build up or destroy, kind of. And she has both of them, which is very rare, and she has like, she's not bound to anything, which means she doesn't have limitations. And the prince, this like dark prince, finds her and is trying to get her to help him work on this so that the vile do not escape and like wreak havoc on the earth. And that's kind of the premise. So there's this like looming danger of like, we have to stop the vile, they can't get out. I apologize, my puppy needs up on the couch. Hold on. It was also a semi-complicated magic system, and for a while you're kind of lost and you don't really know what's going on, and she kind of feeds you pieces as the main character's perspective as you go, and at times it was kind of hard to grasp. And like overall this book was okay, but nothing great to me, nothing like super memorable. I don't want to say that though, because like there are parts of this that are unique, but I don't know, it just didn't grab me the way I thought it was going to. I didn't really buy most of the friendships or relationships in this book, and I really only liked one character, who's Creek, which if you've read this, the way his character kind of develops is weird. Even that I'm kind of on the fence about, but Creek was my favorite of the whole story, and he's not a main character. And the like prince in this book, he's called the Heir. And it seemed like there was a lot of similarities between him and the Darkling. And like, he was almost being painted in a way that's similar to the Darkling, except not as cool. And you know me, I love the Darkling. He's my favorite character of the entire Grishaverse. He's the best part of the series for me, but I didn't like this character. I don't know if that gives you like any idea of how I feel about this, but I just felt like it was like trying to be something that it wasn't, but also trying to be its own thing, which is good. I don't know, I felt like I didn't really buy into this danger, and at the end of the book, it seemed like the whole plot was for nothing. I don't know, I just wasn't a big fan of it. I did give it 2.5 stars. It could have been better, could have been worse, but I just wasn't a big fan. I will say the main character is Ace, so it's really interesting to read from that perspective as somebody who is not. So if that's something you're interested in, this might be a good book for you to pick up, just to be able to read from that perspective. Overall, this was okay. Hello. I have a puppy break and thank you for trying to chew my face off. You gotta be sweet. Look at the camera. Look at you. Okay, all right, go nap. You're fine. You act like we don't love you. Bye, buddy. Quick puppy break. The next book that I read in October is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. This was also my first Naomi Novik book. I really enjoyed this. So basically what this book is about is you're following the main character, Galadriel, and I think she goes by Elle, and she is in the Scholomance, which is a magical school. And I don't know, they're not necessarily called like witches, wizards, but basically they are able to harness magic, and there's like good magic and bad magic. And you go to the Scholomance and you're kind of there for 4 years, and you either graduate or you die, and there's like monsters lurking and things you have to battle constantly, and like you can't go to the bathroom by yourself, or you can, but it's not safe because something could jump you, and it's just kind of like you're going through this schooling and trying to survive until you graduate, if you can survive graduation. So I enjoyed this book. It seems like way more than most people. I've heard like not great things about this book, but I really liked it. and I was kind of surprised about how much that I liked it because of what I've heard. And I thought, like, the premise was interesting to me. I was curious about it, but after all of the negative comments, I was like, oh, maybe I'm not gonna like it. But I really did. I thought the main character was blunt and harsh, and honestly, kind of really appreciated and liked that. Maybe that's the reason, like, she's not a very likable character, but in being that way, I appreciate that. I can be very blunt sometimes and very straightforward, and I just kind of appreciate seeing characters like that sometimes. I liked reading from her perspective and that perspective. And I also really liked Orion. I thought he was a pretty interesting character, and I'm curious to read more about him. I liked the bits about the schoolwork or the projects and the monsters and creatures like lurking throughout the school and the descriptions of the creatures. I'm really curious to see what senior year looks like. So for those of you going into it thinking that they're like going to graduation, this is like the junior year for this character, so it's not graduation yet. I'm curious to see what that's gonna be like, and I just thought this was really fun. Overall, I think if you enjoy magical schools and snarkiness, then you will really enjoy this book, or at least probably like it. So yeah, I definitely want to continue. The next book is called The Graduate, and I would like to get it soon and continue because it was fun. Makes me more excited to read more of Naomi Novik's writing because I know she's written Uprooted and Spinning Silver, but this was the first thing I've read from her, so it was a nice introduction to her. Oh, and I gave this 3 stars. Another book that I read that I'm not even going to touch on really at all, I'm just going to mention it. While we did this small road trip to pick up our puppy, we did listen to Caraval on audiobook because my husband has never read it, and so we listened to it together, and that was really fun. And it was really fun for me to be able to listen to it because I've never listened to it, so you know, reading it again, but also being able to experience it with him because, you know, Caraval is my favorite series, and it's so much fun, and it means a lot to me, so it was really fun to experience that with him. So we did listen to that one, but I'm not like gonna count it towards my Goodreads goal or anything because I already read it this year. But we did read that technically. Next one that I read was House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. This was her debut novel, I believe, and she just came out with Small Favors, which now I want to read because I really liked this book. And this book is a 12 Dancing Princesses retelling, and it's more eerie and kind of dark, nautical, sea related stuff, and also kind of, I don't know if it's like a thriller necessarily. It's like a YA fantasy horror. Not too scary. I don't do too scary. This is not too scary, but I did have a really good time with this. I thought it was very enjoyable, really fun to read in October. And the main character is, again, it's 12 Dancing Princesses retelling, so the main character is going to this mysterious dance party with her sisters, and her sisters keep mysteriously going missing and dying, and they're trying to figure out like the culprit behind all of this. And overall, it was really enjoyable, also really creepy. I enjoyed this, honestly, way more than I thought I was going to. I'm not a big horror reader, but this combined with the fantasy elements and the eerie nautical ambiance was really amazing and really fun. There was a trope in this book that I hate, but even then it didn't ruin the book for me. Erin A. Craig does a really good job, I think, of like setting the scene and the tone of this type of eerie book, and I had a really good time with it. Again, like I said, so much so that I really want to pick up Small Favors now. The ending was a little bizarre, but I feel like all thriller horror endings are kind of bizarre, or kind of like, I don't want to say a letdown, but just like, you never know how it's going to resolve itself, and usually when it does resolve itself, you're like, what just happened? It was really interesting. There was also some kind of psychological stuff going on, even though it was fantasy, and that was really cool too. And yeah, I just think Erin A. Craig did an amazing job with this book, and I rated it 3.5 out of 5 stars. If you like any sort of creepy books, again, not horror, because I think if you are like die-hard horror readers, this is going to be too tame for you. But if you want something like kind of creepy, I would pick this up. It was really good. The next book that I was able to read in October was Stalking, Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. Basically what this book is about is you're following Audrey Rose, who is a forensic apprentice to her uncle. And so she's like working with dead bodies, and then they start finding a series of murders, which is then dubbed the Ripper. And it's Jack the Ripper, and so she's trying to solve these murders alongside her uncle and another apprentice named Thomas to find and stop Jack the Ripper. I knew when I heard about this series that I was going to love it. I found it on clearance one time as a box set, and I bought them immediately because I knew I would love this series, just never got around to it. So I finally picked up the first one and finished it. I was right, I loved it. It was so good. It was way creepier and like more gruesome than I thought it was gonna be, and I loved it. I love the forensic elements. I love the feministic elements. I know some people have like a bad taste in their mouth sometimes about YA, like strong female feminist characters, but I really loved Audrey Rose. I loved Thomas. He was absolutely hilarious. I enjoyed this so much. Thomas was very clever as well, and very like Sherlock Holmes, like power of deduction, very smart. Audrey Rose is a feminist who won't let society tell her what to do, and I just enjoy reading those characters. And it's just all wrapped up in like forensics and murder and like psychoanalyzing, and I love that stuff. It's so great. So, you know, I knew I was really gonna like this series when I heard about it, and I was right. I was correct. So really enjoyed this. I'm very excited to continue the series and excited that I have all of them already. It was also kind of cool. So the first Carrie Maniscalco book I read was Kingdom of the Wicked, which I absolutely loved. And I've heard that people that love this series don't really like that series as much because her writing is not the same. And it was interesting to be able to compare her different works and her different writing styles between the two. And I love both of them. I don't have like any qualms with either of them. Like I really enjoy all of it. So she's probably climbing up there as one of my favorite authors, and I'll probably read anything she writes from now on. Yeah, I really loved this book. Love Thomas so much. And this was 4 out of 5 stars. All right, everyone. Well, that was all the books that I was able to finish in October. There's still some that I'm working on that I will hopefully be able to finish and get reviews up for soon. Please comment down below if there's anything you would like to see a review on. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.